No one lives a life that can actually produce a reality TV episode every week.
Is the show canceled?
They haven't come out and said it, but like, we're not continuing.
Did you think you would marry someone with dwarfism?
On the show, I said I'm going to marry someone with dwarfism and I'm going to have a dwarf army.
Really?
I got the dwarf army. I did not marry that dwarf. I would not wish dwarfism on my kids. There is a lot of suffering. There's a lot of mental toughness that needs to happen. There's a lot of medical complications that come from it. No one would pick dwarfism over average height. Words have different meanings through different years. Little People of America started out by M People of America.
No way. We sat down with Zach and Tori Roloff, who made headlines earlier this year for announcing their departure from Little People Big World after 25 seasons. Now with 3 kids, they've been very open online about the pressures of reality TV, as well as what it's like to raise kids with dwarfism. We talk about everything from Zach's parents' very public divorce to why it's offensive to use the M word. You know what's funny is we actually, I'm pretty sure, ran into you at Disneyland, or Abby saw you guys.
Are we stealing the story? Ooh, you're thunder, babe.
Okay, I can't move.
Wait a minute.
No.
I didn't think you guys saw me, and I was like,
No.
Stop. We didn't think you saw us. That's so funny.
What?
Okay. Oh.
okay, yeah, tell
That's
I
my
want to hear
story.
your perspective.
I've been waiting for it.
You were sitting on a bench. We were right in front of Tower of
sounds so
Terror.
creepy.
Okay, and I walked by, and like I scroll reels like on Instagram, whatever, and you guys did dancing videos at the time, and I told Tori, I go, Tori, I could have. You were holding your child.
Yes.
I'm like, I could have sworn I've seen that girl on reels or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? It was just you sitting there.
Yes.
You must have been on the ride or something. Tori
Yes.
was a little ahead. So
Yeah.
you saw Tori too then.
Yes.
I
Okay.
did not see you guys.
I'm pushing the cart. And then, then later on that night, I'm like, I saw her. I know it. And
Yeah.
so scrolling reels, I'm like, Tori, these are the people, you know?
No
And then 2
way.
years
Oh my
later,
gosh.
like, podcasts
Here
are
we
popping
are.
up. And I'm like, no, Tori, I've
That
seen
is
these people.
so
And then you're
funny.
sending us an invite. And I'm like,
You're like, we already met.
Yeah.
Kind of. So I totally remember that, Matt. You went on a ride, I think, while I was like, I had to nurse Griffin because we didn't even have Augie at that point. And so I was like nursing him, and then I was like kind of stuck on the bench, and I was like, or it might have just finished or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute. I recognize them.
Yeah.
Wait,
So
that's
that's
so
so
good.
funny.
I distinctly remember Abby telling me, like, Matt, some people from Little People Big World are here. Like, I just saw them. Yeah.
That's so
And
good.
so
Were you guys
I-
there just for fun with your
I'm
family?
kind of a fan.
Yeah,
Oh,
Tori's a
yeah.
fan.
I'm a
Are you
little
a
bit
Disney
of a
adult?
fan.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wouldn't call myself a Disney adult. I'm not like weird,
that might
but
have
I
been-
do like going.
That might have been our last trip with the whole family, though.
No, that would have been.
That was 2023. If you're
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, God.
it was
Yeah.
literally
Yeah,
last
that was-
year,
that
last
trip,
January.
That trip, Tori's gone with like Jackson, her friends.
I know.
But,
I do kind of like going with my girlfriends now. It's a little more.
Our
a little
little,
less
our
stressful.
littlest one,
Nice.
it was a little much. So we're gonna wait till
Yeah.
they get a little older.
Yeah, totally.
But Tori's a huge Disney fan.
yeah.
Do you like? You don't like it as
Disneyland.
much.
I like
He's
it.
married to it.
Yeah.
He's married
Yeah,
to it.
married.
I don't like a
Married.
lot of crowds.
Yeah.
I don't like I would go camping, versus, I don't like a lot of crowds. That
Yeah.
whole the rides, like that's cool, but
Yeah.
but Tori loves it. So.
Yeah.
That's.
Did
so
you guys
sweet.
get stopped a lot while you were there? Like, does that happen whenever you're out with your family? People are like, oh, it's the people from the TV show.
Fair amount, yeah, fair amount. If we're waiting in line, if we're like cruising, everyone's cruising, everyone's getting to their next fast pass or whatever
Yes,
like that.
yes.
Yeah.
So like not so much, but like waiting for the parades or whatever, we'll get a fair amount of people. It's mostly
So,
with me, like Tori's.
Can I tell the
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes story?
Yeah.
So I just went we were there the weekend of the Super Bowl, and the next day the MVP goes
Patrick
to Disneyland.
Mahomes,
So
yeah.
Patrick Mahomes goes to Disneyland the next day, and we're sitting there watching the parade, and all of a sudden this woman comes up to me crying, and she was like so excited to meet me. And I'm literally like, honey, Patrick Mahomes is like
Yeah.
right there. But she was so stoked to like meet
His
me
wife
and say
is
hi.
best friends with Taylor Swift.
Yeah, like
that's the
right
focus.
there. Like, I
okay?
totally see Patrick Mahomes, but she was so excited. Like, it's
Yeah.
usually only when people recognize him or family members. But that
Tori's
time
starting to
it
get
was-
there though.
I know, starting.
That's
People will
so-
recognize her without me,
Yeah, every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
That's fun. Yeah, we're also, I mean, I know you said you're not technically a Disney adult, but I would say we kind of are in a way. I mean,
We definitely are.
yeah. I mean, we just love the parks and
It's
taking our
so
kids.
fun.
Like when you see your kids go too, it just makes it
Oh,
really
yeah.
special.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
totally.
So
Like
sweet.
That's what it
we're-
is. If the kids are loving it, the family's loving it, I love it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would not go like,
He would not choose it on his
yeah,
own.
I would, So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 3 kids, like how is how is life with 3? Because we have 2, and I feel like it can be a bit hectic. But I'm curious how 3 feels being outnumbered.
Yeah, it speeds up pretty
You
fast.
are outnumbered.
Yeah,
You can feel it.
And
for
every
sure.
kid is different. Our first kid, we're like, oh, this is great. And then the second kid, okay, it's doable. Like, she'll have the baby, I'll have Jackson, or she'll have Lila, I'll have Jackson, or vice versa. I'll take Lila. But then 3. Ours with 3 right now, like, it's all great, but like Jackson's in 1 speed, he wants to like go outside and ride bikes or like hike. The others can't do that yet, you know what I'm saying? Or like, so you have 3 kids all at different play speeds, you know what I'm saying? Like, one, like the baby is indoors crawling, or Josiah's not crawling, he's walking now, but you get what I'm saying a little bit? You're at these different phases, or nap times are different.
Right.
Jackson's not a nap anymore, Josiah's still taking 2 naps, so that's like, I thought that was one of the harder things. Is just you have different
I feel like
and they all have different needs. Jackson is still craving for that like one-on-one, that he remembers that one-on-one attention, so he's constantly trying to crave for that. But then Lila is kind of stuck in the middle. We kind of bounce her back and forth. Hey, go hang with Jackson, or she's with Josiah. She goes in between of being like the baby to like be with the older kids, and then Josiah is just trying to figure it all out.
Well, Josiah has such bad FOMO. He's only 2 and he cannot chill. Like, if the kids are outside, he needs to be outside. If the kids are doing rides, he needs to. And like, sometimes you're like, dude, you're 2. You cannot do everything that everyone else is doing, and that's hard.
That would be like, you got a lot of different needs, and you want to fulfill all of them, but like you can't, so
Like, we're only 2 people. We only got 4 hands.
Yeah.
So this is the infamous question, but what was the hardest transition? 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3?
My world got rocked from 1 to 2.
Okay.
Like, from going from our oldest was also so easy. Like, and I say this, we talk about Lila all the time about being our difficult one, and she's so chill now, but as a baby she was hard. And like, going from our first being so easy, dream, like no problems with anything, to a baby who was very colicky and threw up a lot, and just took a lot of time.
Jackson wasn't super about it.
Jackson did not like her.
Yeah, he
he was like, send that thing back.
It's not just her. I think it was mom and dad's focus.
Oh, for sure.
You went from that's your boy, and now you're, hey, Jackson, I'm sorry, like you need to play by yourself. We need to do this with the baby or whatever. And that concept, I'm very big on like child psychology. In another world, I would have been a child psychologist. But like the selfishness of kids and the self-centeredness that they have, and then so like the world revolves around them, and then when they come to these moments of it not, but they're trying to still seek that out. How do I please? How do I find that again? So that's that was probably the toughest.
You agree?
Would you say going?
1 to 2 for sure. And then 3, you're just kind of in.
3 was just like he was always here.
Yeah,
Just
he
adding
just
on.
rolled in.
When Jackson and Lila both loved Josiah as a baby, like Jackson's response to Lila being born and then Josiah's was totally different. Like, he was all about it.
Yeah, and Lila's like such a little mother hen that she just stepped right into it.
100%. So
Sweet.
1 to 2 was rough though.
You made a pretty big announcement not too long ago that you were leaving the show Little People Big World. With being on reality TV for so long, I think Abby was like, Matt, the show's been going on for over 20 seasons. Like, that's
25.
huge. Or 25. Like, that's
insane.
crazy how many seasons have aired. I'm curious how, still on the topic of kids, how you talk to your children about TV and about, like, when you're at Disney and someone comes up and says hi to you, like, how do you talk to your kid about that?
It's our burden. I would say when a fan comes up, the kids don't really vibe with fans a lot. And I get it. And sometimes fans are great, but there are fans in a reality TV setting. They think they know us. They think they know our kids, and it is, it's the path we chose, like, to show them on the TV, and we show them on social media. But then it's our burden in person to handle that. So most of the time it's, if a fan walks up to us, it's, Jackson, keep going, or follow mom. And then that's our burden to handle that interaction.
I would say it wasn't like there was so many reasons why we left the show. It wasn't the only reason, but that was a big part of it was, our kids all of a sudden were becoming more aware of people recognizing them or having to like come home from school and film, and you know, that wasn't what they wanted to do. And so I felt like that was like a big reason for us stepping away, being like, we want to give our kids more space. We want to give them a little bit more.
It's a stressor too when you're like, I feel like reality TV is like a different industry than a lot of other industries. Like if someone works at Intel or Nike, like dad works at Nike, you know, mom's at home taking care of the kids, great. And then dad distributes, you know, pays for the family to do whatever.
Yeah.
Reality TV, it's a little different. It's not me. It's not
You
just
don't have a
Tori.
show without the
kids
family.
are the employees also. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all relies. Like we're all building the family wealth together. You know what I'm saying? A little bit. It's a little less, you know, just dad is making the actual money. Like the whole family's growing together, and the family supports, you know, or the mom, whatever. But reality television, there's like, so, you know, production days, if the kids aren't into it, you know, it's stressful for us because, you know, so those days got more, and then it was time to kind of say like, hey, and again, there's a lot of other reasons though, but like, we're like, hey, this is a good point where we need to isolate this and become a little bit more mom and dad are the breadwinners. That's not the kids' burden, and that's not their, they already have so much other stressful things in their life, like eating vegetables and going to bed on time. So like, you don't need to also add, you know, adult stress to them too.
Isn't it so interesting though? Because like, okay, obviously for a very long time, like for thousands and thousands of years, like kids have been a part of helping, you know, take care of the family farm or whatever. Like they've been, you know, kids have always been involved in family businesses in one way or another. Obviously with child labor laws in the past century, like that's been really good to help protect kids and make sure that they're going to school. With reality TV, it's not just like they're helping the family business, but they're also like their private life is out as well. And a kid that is, you know, helping take care of a family farm, it's not like the whole country knows the inner details of their life.
I would say there's it's a very public job versus like helping out picking weeds or planting seeds or whatever. There's a different dynamic
personal.
there.
It's not business.
Yes.
It becomes personal.
And there's a, you know, the kid's not feeling well that day, great, you know, someone else in the family will plant the wheat seeds that day.
Wait, and you guys like live on a farm, right? So is that something that
I mean, we live on land.
Oh, you live on land. Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call it like farming. I think you have to have like cows and, and
we got,
livestock.
We got
chickens,
nice little
and
like
that's
we got like the, you know, the classic 4 chickens and 2 tomato plants
and like a cute little garden, you know, like
we spend $800 on our little garden to get 2 strawberries. So
you're like, we're gonna savor these strawberries.
We are.
But like, you know, we're homesteading.
There's something about that though. Like I was just eating blackberries here in Nashville, and I was like, Abby, these blackberries taste like the blackberries my grandpa grew on his farm. Because when you grow stuff yourself,
it's
it
different.
It has a different flavor and taste.
Different.
So what do you guys grow on your farm? Is there something?
Oh my gosh, we have snap peas right now. Like literally this whole trip, I'm like, gosh, I could really just go for some snap peas right now.
We do the snap pea. We have 4 chickens, a couple strawberries, and a few blueberry plants. So it's like it's not like a farm, but it's, you know, but the kids love it. We do it for the kids too. They love going out there.
Jackson like picked out all the seeds with me, helped me plant the whole box.
When you get
That's
your
such a
first
good
strawberry.
learning experience.
Oh yeah. Well, and we both are like, I am terrible. Like I have a black thumb 100%. And so it's like we're learning together how like to plant stuff.
Taking care of like animals too, I feel like is like chickens, like having the kids go out there, water, feed them, you know.
Oh, but we're the worst though. Like we couldn't be a farm specifically just because we couldn't take care of livestock.
I feel like
we have a dog and chickens, and that's rough.
It's the dream though. Like rough. Live on our farm, you know. The things I want to do don't actually always pay, you know what I'm saying? But like, I would just work on our property all day long. You know, but that's
and
not,
he's good at it too. He's good at
reality.
like keeping it up, and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, you know, that doesn't pay the bills.
Do you think your decision to step away from the show, do you think that was partially influenced by your experience growing up in reality TV?
Yeah, I think things just kind of caught up a little bit. Family drama, family dynamics. Like it was all of our family. I had 3 siblings, stepped away from the show at different times, and then my parents divorced, and like that storyline was like on me. Sometimes too, like fans or whatever, critics of the show will say like something about me. I'm like, hold on here. I got 3 other siblings that are all saying the same thing, thinking the same. Just because I'm the only sibling on television, does not mean I'm like the only family member here that's saying these things. You know what I'm saying a little bit, or like upset about something, or so that kind of caught up a little bit, and then I don't know, it's just time to move on to like again the family dynamics as reality TV grows. You know, reality TV is reality TV, but there's also context within that. You have the demand to make episodes every week. No one lives a life that can actually produce a reality TV episode every week.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not reality. You go on like a summer vacation one time a year. You know what I'm saying? Like, reality TV, there's a constant, you know, so sometimes you also need time for life to naturally develop. And then, yeah, you mix that with the kids, and then the family dynamics were kind of broken at the time. So, and then, yeah, growing up, I'm like, hey, we're young enough that we could pivot, you know, versus like, you know, we're 50 or something. It would be harder to pivot. You can still do it. Lots of people do it. But, hey, you know, it's time to, let's see what other opportunities. Are we not seeing something because we're in this, you know, not cushy job, but like, are we comfortable here, and are we not seeing other opportunities? So take away maybe a little bit of comfort, but a lot of stress also, but take away that comfort, and let's see what other opportunities are out there.
Well, and I always say too, and I feel like you don't always agree with me on this, but I always say that like the show used to be an educational show. It used to be like educating the world on dwarfism and what that meant. And it kind of somewhere along the lines became a relationship show, and it became about like family dynamics and relationships with others. And it was just kind of like, I don't know.
Reality TV developed too, though. Like,
totally.
I feel like we were one of the kind of the first ones out there.
But it's like, but I think even when we first started dating, it was like, it's exciting and it's fun, but it's still like kind of that interest of like, what does it mean to have dwarfism and date somebody of average height, and what does that look like? And then when they throw in the drama with it all, like Zach and I are the least dramatic people on the planet. Like truly, we're like, we don't fight a ton. We don't do like these extravagant, crazy things. And so there comes a time where it's like, this just isn't us. Like we're trying to like make these, and like there was a lot of cool opportunities that came from the show, and it's not something that we would ever regret. Like we met so many cool people, got to do so many cool things, but at the same time, like, would we have done those without the show? Probably not. Like we're just kind of more low key, I think.
It's harder to like it's hard to say what you could have done or whatever.
Yeah.
But also with the comfortability growing up, like we weren't poor. Like then the show came along and everything like that, so it is easier to also say like, I have some moral grounds here. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to. We're not going to fight on camera, even if it is for TV.
Like even in front of like some of our best friends, like we don't fight in front of people.
So
like that's not something.
I guess I'm saying we acknowledge that it was easy for us to also say no, we're not doing that. Versus someone that's like up and coming, or someone that's like
they need the income.
Yeah, and like they will do whatever they need to do. You know what I'm saying?
Was there pressure to have conflict on camera?
Oh yeah, I would say
not direct, but like like we understand the industry. We understand like they're not. I would always say like a production day has like 15 people. Like I don't know the budget just for that. Like they're not here just to film us sitting on the couch.
How much?
Something like
that's true.
There's a demand
here. It's understood.
It's understood here. They're very TV is like that though. Any industry is like that. I feel like there's a lot of things that are said, or like they can say like, oh, we didn't say that, you know, but it's like everyone knows what we're here for. I'm not criticizing the industry necessarily, but there is like a context of like,
of course, it's a business.
How did that affect you too? Because obviously drama does well for TV, and so in the midst of your parents' divorce, how did that affect you? With that being public, did people come up to you and ask you questions, or I'm just curious,
or even having to do like interviews about it during that time? I
avoided a lot of it. Like I was pretty staunch and kind of avoided like elaborating too much, because I feel for, you know, kids where parents get divorced at a young age. It is mom versus dad. You know, you had team mom and team dad, team Matt, team Amy, you know what I'm saying, amongst the fans. You know,
that's honestly what you got more than anything was like fans would come up and just like take sides, and you're like,
really?
Whoa, this is awkward.
Or they're like,
I'm not gonna go there.
Your mom. which is implying I do not like your dad.
Yeah.
Really?
my
Or
God.
your
versa.
dad. Your dad's
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah.
And it's implying that maybe they, you know what I'm saying? Like it's so like no one said like, what do you think, Zach? But like, or I wouldn't say no one. It
I was gonna
probably
say
happened.
there's definitely some bold people out
We
there
did
that
some
pass.
private. I was doing private tours at the farm at the time, and now that I think about it, there was some conversations there that people like, hey, what do you think? But no one like on the street was
gosh.
like, Zach, oh my gosh, you're from the Little People World. Hey, what do you think about your mom and dad? You know, so
Yeah.
in private settings with fans, those questions probably came out more. So. But again, it wasn't like the pressure of I was not the only sibling in this, you know. And then Tori and me are like, you know, getting married and promising our life to each other at the same time. A very public divorce is happening, and so it was that part was like just kind of, it was unfortunate. It is what it is, you know. But yeah, just certain things like that eventually just kind of caught up, you know. And again, don't regret anything. A lot of doors were open for us and everything like that. And it was a cool experience. I feel like I understand how certain things work in like every day. The news, like behind the scenes of almost any camera work, you know, like there is an interesting, I'm always asking like, I wonder what actually happened there. Or how was that? What's the reality there? You know, so yeah.
Both my grandparents, both sets of grandparents in my family actually got divorced. And so I know my parents, when they were going to get married, they were like kind of hesitant at first because they had both seen that and been through that. And you mentioning that you got married at the same time, did that make you hesitant at all for marriage, seeing that play out?
Thank you to Factor for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. The way I decide what I eat in the day, the priorities are number 1 by far is convenience. 2 is health, and a close third is taste. And I feel like Factor embodies that criteria so well.
Factor meals are actually really tasty, and it's crazy how you can just throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes and shazao, you have yourself a meal. It's like
They're fresh, never frozen meals, and like Matt said, they only take 2 minutes. No prep, no cooking. You don't even waste the dish because you can eat them right out of the container. It could not be more convenient.
They come right to your door. They have these shots too, these wellness shots that taste amazing. Like I was never like into like the juice stuff. Like people are like, oh, I want to have juice with, to be good and stuff. I've never really understood that. But then, wow, when I tried the wellness shots, they just taste.
It feels like it's doing something.
They
It feels
taste
like
good.
shazam.
I feel shazao.
Yeah, they have options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, lots of different things you're looking for, and you never get bored. They have such a variety with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You always have new flavors to explore. They're restaurant quality and use premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Head to factormeals.com/unplanned50 and use code unplanned50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code unplanned50 at factormeals.com/unplanned50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Tori was my first kiss.
First girlfriend.
First girlfriend.
First everything.
So I was pretty like locked in. Like
I'm his first girlfriend, so
Yeah, she's my first girlfriend.
He's my
Yeah.
first boyfriend too.
Yeah.
That's so good.
okay, he was okay. Sorry, I missed that.
We started dating really young, so that kind of.
Wait, I love that.
So in that context, like I was pretty locked in.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
Yeah.
Zach, we've been dating for like 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
5 years. And evenally, I'm like, bro, like, what are we doing here?
My
Not
brother-
bro, sorry, not bro, but dude.
My brother got married the year before, and so like it was the season of life.
And I think honestly, I think that if you guys stopped and thought about it, it did affect. I don't know. I would say like I feel like that conversation was there between your brother. With your brother, because they're doing all these like wedding things and really cool, and I feel like that was probably kind of conflicting to have parents getting divorced and then we're both stepping into marriage, and I feel like that would like if we would have stopped and thought about it, it might have been difficult, but I think that we were so like full speed ahead. We were
excited, long engagement, and like for me, like it was just this is what we're doing.
He bought a house and was like moving in with his buddies, and I'm like over here just like, come on, dude.
Our famous story is at some point of us dating for like 3 years. I'm just enjoying it. Like I've never dated anyone, so I'm like I could do this.
I
Like,
know,
let's,
he totally could.
you know, it was chill, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, my dad calls me up and said, "Hey, Zach, there's a house for sale in the Bethany area. Like, you know, I was in an apartment at the time. Like, I wasn't going to college. I was at community college. So it's like, hey, do you want to like get in on this? You know, like, what else are you doing in a way? Or like, you know, you're not going to go to college, so maybe start buying real estate now. You know, get a house and see where that leads. Anyway, so I'm like, oh sure. So anyway, we go check out the house. Great, love it, done, easy.
You're like, I'll take it.
Yeah, well, it was best neighborhood, and it was
I'm
just
like at work too.
Yeah.
I'm like at work, and that night I like
call
get
her-
off work, and he goes, "Oh, so I put an offer in on a house today." I'm like,
And
"Oh,
so-
okay."
Yeah, she was a little upset about that because apparently we were supposed to be getting engaged and married.
like looking at the house together, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't how like me and my dad were like that though. Tori like it was carpeted. You know what I'm saying? It was this
White
and that.
carpet. throughout the
Location,
whole
location,
house.
location. You know, it was a good
You're like,
investment.
I'll fix
and
this.
that springboarded us
Location,
though.
location.
That house springboarded us into where we are now.
It's
so
true.
it
I can't be
all-
mad about it.
Yeah, it was all a good
It all
decision.
worked out.
But it was a little like the conversation of, you know,
It's the
what are-
communication.
Yeah, what are we
Yeah.
doing? What
That's
are we
all we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we want.
Did that make you feel insecure when you're like when Zach goes and buys this house and you're like, I'm wanting
You're like,
to
am I part of these plans?
1000%. I was kind of like, okay, so this is it. Like, we're done. I'm gonna like move on. The last 4 years has been fun.
I didn't
Oh,
think-
it was actually like that. It was
Oh, a
actually
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
A
like
little bit.
yeah,
I
it was a
was like,
conversation
this is
like,
not
what are we
going
doing
anywhere.
here? You know, and I had no
And I
clue.
think that's finally he was like, oh, is
Oh.
that the next
Oh.
step?
that lit a fire
Yeah,
in your
like,
butt.
well, just like why do you care? Like
It wasn't something you were talking about yet.
Yeah.
Or
What-
we were talking about marriage
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
were.
Like we had been like talking about the future and all that, but I think Zach would have dated me for the
I
next
did
10
not
years.
equate that to like this
Where
had
I'm
nothing
over
to do
here
with
like, I
our
don't have
relationship.
kids, I don't have family. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
That's
But-
so funny.
Then I lived with my friends for like 2 years, and then
It was only like a year, wasn't it?
no, because we had Brian and Jake for a full year.
Okay.
Okay, it was a year and a half.
Yeah.
It was a year and a half.
And it ended up being a lot of fun. having
The
that
dining
house.
room had like, it was a classic dining room, had like a
foosball
foosball table.
in the
and-
middle of the dining room.
yeah, it was like 1980s
You're like,
decor
yeah.
everywhere. We probably kept, I think we kept the wallpaper up somewhere on the bathroom.
Oh yeah, there was.
And- yeah.
Oh, that floral wallpaper.
So,
Yeah.
So you guys met and started dating, and it's being aired on reality TV.
yeah.
You said earlier you made an interesting point about how the show started off educational in your eyes, and so I'm curious, like, what aspects the show got right in the area of like dating with different height, like a different height dynamic.
I think it just normalized it. You know, like I think that it just didn't make it weird. Right.
I argue this a
it's
lot.
hard. Or yeah.
Or I argue this a lot. Like, yeah, the show went away from maybe more of focusing on this educational point, but just us being on camera, I think, was
Yeah.
education. There's still a ton of
Eyes.
power being on television. People like, if you're on television, you're respected. You're looked at it in a different way.
Yeah.
It sometimes doesn't even matter what you're saying. You know, people still value that a lot. So people with dwarfism could say, I know someone on TV. There's still like a value there, and that's an educational piece.
Like
alone.
representation.
Yes,
100%.
yes. So I always like, sometimes like, well, actually we talked about this on our podcast about the whole Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
I was listening to
He
you guys
loves
talking about
bringing
that.
this up.
That was so interesting.
Wait, I'm curious.
I had huge feelings about this. Okay, so
Elaborate. Yeah, I wanna-
well, it was a live action, and they basically.
Which you guys are Disney fans. I'm sure you've heard
Yeah,
like the
so they
drama
scrapped-
I
around.
know the
Okay.
drama. I haven't seen the. Has the movie even come
I don't
out?
even know if they're doing
No,
it anymore.
yeah.
Like
The
honestly, I don't
movie
even
didn't
know.
come out.
The movie
No,
still hasn't come
it
out,
still
so
They're
hasn't come out.
terrified. Wait, what? I'm so curious.
I'm gonna rant. Tori, check me, okay?
Buckle up, guys.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Okay, they scrapped the dwarfs in the story. They updated the queen, which okay, great. They a diversity
No,
actor.
Snow White.
Or Snow White,
Snow White.
sorry. They updated Snow White to be an Hispanic
Yeah.
actress. Great. Well then, Peter Dinklage, you know, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I
you
love
know,
that dude.
He's cool, but
Yeah.
he
but-
had some opinions on this that scratched. He thought we shouldn't be telling the story, which is great. Then don't tell the story. But then he was like, "Oh, but I like how they updated the queen, well, or Snow White.
White.
Snow White and Peter Dinklage. Who's this actor?
Oh, Rachel.
They played in a movie together.
Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games.
Games.
So there's some politics going on here. You know what I'm saying? So now they're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarfs. Okay.
Okay, but what do they call them?
Why
now,
would they
too?
get rid of the
call them
dwarves, though?
Special.
No. magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures.
But that's also more offensive to the dwarf community than like calling
So if we're looking
dwarves
at updating
magical
stories
creatures.
and everything, you actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group, you just erase that whole image. So if you're going to update the queen, you can still make the movie. The argument should have been from Peter Dinklage, update the story. You don't have to talk about the 7 dwarfs as miners in a cave or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like a dwarf, a magical like creatures that are mining for diamonds. You know what I'm saying? You can update that side of things too. Get the Disney writers on it. Get creative. It could have been like 7 dudes that live in a town together in normal life. Maybe some of them are married, and then Snow White comes in and they like decide to help her. You know what I'm saying? There's other ways you could have done that, but instead they just sidestepped the dwarf problem, the disability problem, and just erased it from the story.
Okay, so
Does that make
basically,
sense?
I'm a little confused, but
Yeah.
I guess my question is, did Peter think that they should switch up the dwarves, or just Disney did that on their own?
He thought this story shouldn't be told.
Oh, at all?
Yes.
Literally at all. Okay.
So he said this on a podcast, and I actually went back and listened to the podcast. They showed the clip. You guys probably know this,
Oh,
right?
I love that you went for the
People
context.
do this all the time to us. They'll watch our short, and then we're like,
Right.
you didn't listen to the
You did,
conversation.
yeah.
Okay, so I went back and listened. He said something about it. The host, I don't think understood what he was saying, and so then he kind of like, not got frustrated, but like he said it a little bit more dramatic. Basically, like went for the kill. Like they should get rid of this story. Disney then came out and said, we're putting a pause on this, and they recreated the movie based on his comments. So his
No.
comments.
Do you know
Hey.
that for a fact, though?
I have heard enough that
Okay,
I think his comments, because it made the massive news. They had Fox News had some person with dwarfism on their show talk. It was a huge.
Yeah.
It was all about diversity and all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Inclusion. So it was a huge topic at the time.
So
Like,
Disney thought that he didn't want there to be dwarves in the movie.
Yes. He thought, and he thought the story was just dumb to begin with, which that's a different argument. I'm saying. So my main point is, there's power of being on TV. There's power of television, and to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. So if the story is offensive, change the story. Don't change the characters.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Make them more like real people rather than mythical creatures.
So you updated the queen, made her diverse or whatever. Do the same with the people, the actors with dwarfism. That was my thing. That was my big thing was. Because to our original point, there's power of being on camera. And even though what you're saying isn't always maybe educational, like it doesn't sound like a sermon or whatever, or a lecture, there's still power with anyone with disability or anyone. There's power of being on camera. And people, great power comes great responsibility. If you're on power, people, or if you're on camera, people then, have an idea that you're maybe smarter than you are, or your words matter. You know what I'm saying? And so.
Do you guys feel like a big burden to almost represent the dwarfism community because of the show, because of the platform? Does it make you that would be a lot of weight to have on your shoulders, where you feel like you represent a whole community in a way, and you have to be careful with what you say and what you don't say?
I feel like growing up on camera, I was maybe a little bit like a teenager. I wanted people to leave me alone. Being famous, I wanted, people were annoying, fans, I was 16 and kids with dwarfism would walk up to me at the LPA convention, Little People of America conventions, and be like so excited, and I just didn't want it. You know what I'm saying? Growing up now I'm a little older with 3 kids with dwarfism. I do feel more of a like, maybe this is my, and like, when you're a kid too, like I had my issues of like insecurity and, why did God make me like this, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? But now I think I've like, maybe this is my lot in life. We've talked about this on our show of like, where do we want to put Raising Heights? Do we want to make it a show about like where we talk about stories with people with dwarfism and growing up like that? Or do we want to go somewhere else? But I'm like, man, Tori, maybe this is our like lot. You know what I'm saying? Like this is what was given to us. We gotta embrace this. You know what I'm saying? A little bit like, not denial, but like maybe we should go all in on this. Because it could be a very cool thing. So yeah, I do feel pressure, but also like I embrace it though. Like I especially embrace it now. Like, 18-year-old, 19 or 22-year-old comes up to me, especially a boy. That's how I grew up, living with someone with dwarfism. All my friends are, 6'2" and running track and football and just, girls and all sorts of things. There's a difference there. But now I'm like, all right, I know what you're going through. I want to help you, inspire you. And so here's one, like, even just liking or being friends with me on Facebook, if that helps you in your society, gives you something to stand on, let's go, You get what I'm saying a little bit?
Yeah, like be a resource that you wish you would have had, growing up. That's really cool. And like a role model, because like you're saying, representation is so important.
How did that affect you growing up? Like, I appreciate you sharing how, I don't know, at the Little People conventions, people would come up and they really loved talking to you. Like, but it seemed like you didn't want that. Like, how did that?
I was really shy. I was super shy growing up. So yeah, that, like, and then people are like coming up to me and I'm like in a corner, like I'm in a corner for a reason, like, so yeah, it was tough. Like, I grew up with it though. It was fans and it was a lot of attention. I always say, like, I can walk into the grocery store and like I'm being looked at, and now, like, with the TV, for example, I'm still being looked at, or an LPA where everyone has dwarfism where you're supposed to blend in. I'm still being highlighted. You know what I'm saying? So, like, there was no spot where I could just kind of not be looked at in a way, And then when, again, you're a teenager, insecure, like, we all know this. We all have our insecurities when we're young, and you just want to hide from the world. For example, maybe, and I'm kind of going away from the LPA part of it, but, like, you guys put a sweatshirt on when you're in high school and put sunglasses on and, like, look like every other teenager. You know what I'm saying? People with dwarfism maybe don't have that same luxury. You're still standing out, you know what I'm saying? And, like, Tori and me have debates on this. Like, she had insecurities growing up. I had insecurities. And, like, I'm not saying my insecurities were more valued than hers or whatever, but I could still go into a grocery store and my high school insecurities are still there. Those kids.
Where I've kind of grown out of mine. Like, insecurities
acne or whatever
I had.
else, or your insecurities were just in your head.
Yeah.
So there is a different, thickness, or, like, there's a different thickness that I think develops over time. And then you mix the show in with it or whatever. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of lost where we were going there.
No, I appreciate you
Yeah.
opening up. I think this is definitely helpful to people out there who can relate in some way. And also, on the topic of kids, I know we were talking about you guys having 3 kids. How do you speak to them about dwarfism? How do you approach that topic and educate them on why? Because obviously, your kids, like, they've been on reality TV and they also have dwarfism, so they probably notice sometimes, like, if they go into a store, someone might stare or something.
Yeah. They're getting there. Jackson still, we're very, like, when Jackson asks me questions, like, I will then answer, but I don't think we're going to give him the talk of you have dwarfism unless he asks us. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we're not going to, we're going
to let all of our kids come to us.
Yeah. Some people are like, you have dwarfism and this is this. And, like, they're not even, we just went to LPA and he's literally like, Dad, why are you playing with all the kids?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
he
The
still
kids,
doesn't
the
get
other
it.
adults my size. These aren't kids. These are adults.
Yeah.
He like thinks
because
I'm the
of their
only,
size, he thinks they're kids.
like he thinks I'm the only person with dwarfism out there. Okay, and everyone else that are like me, they're kids.
You're the only adult.
Yeah. Or he'll say, like, Dad, is he the same age as you? And it's clearly like a 55-year-old person with dwarfism. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, no, he's like, so he like
You're
he's
like,
still,
we don't correlate height with age in this house.
So he's still learning, but he's in sports and he's realizing, but he still hasn't, like, he doesn't know. He said
it's a hard thing to process though, because in our house it's like normal. I'm the weird one in our house.
Yeah.
Not weird, I shouldn't say that, but I'm like the different one in our house, and I think it's gonna be, like, very difficult to kind of, like, know where to go and how to process all of it, because I think we've said we really don't want to make any of our kids' dwarfism their identity. We don't want them to, like, think that that's all there is to them.
Yeah.
And so it's like having these conversations when they bring them up, I think is important, because I think a lot of times, especially parents who have average height that have kids with dwarfism, they tend to like, that's their life. Like they tend to kind of obsess over the dwarfism and the diagnosis and like the doctor appointments and all these other things. And granted, we're very blessed that like our kids don't have tons of major like medical issues, but we also just don't want them to think that's all that they are. There's so much more than dwarfism.
Right.
And
Before I get fact checked by the comments, that was the debate between our podcast going all in on dwarfism, because we do tell our kids that's not your identity. That's not like you are Jackson, you are Lila, you are Josiah. You're not, Jackson, the person with dwarfism.
Yeah.
Necessarily, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But in terms of the podcast, that's our burden, and maybe that is, but it's also our opportunity.
Right.
So do you see where the conflict maybe comes
Yeah.
in? In our home, we don't want it to be all about dwarfism, but in the public, what we put out to the public, maybe this is an opportunity to educate, inspire, whatever else it is. You get what I'm saying a little bit? So
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm sorry, you go first.
No, you go ahead. You're
I'm
good.
curious, like thinking, like we have young kids too, and we're just starting to go to like kids events and like kids play gyms. Like, I'm curious if you ever had interactions where children they haven't learned how to. They haven't been socialized. They stare when they see something or somebody that is different, or they might say things that an adult probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've run into circumstances like that yet.
I feel like directly with our kids, no.
Okay.
Not yet. However, you find kids that just stare. Like they like our kids just look a little different, and so they stare and they're kind of trying to figure out like how old are you?
you're operating like a
where
10-year-old, but you look like a 2-year-old.
Is that an instance where you would want the parent to step in and say something, or like?
See, and we've talked about this, and it's very like, it depends. Like, it really depends on like the situation. I think that when it comes to the kids, I would probably be a lot more defensive. But like, we've had scenarios where kids look at Zach or my in-laws, and they're kind of like, why is your head so big? Or why are you so short? Because kids are just like blunt. They don't have any filter. They just ask those questions. And I and Zach, I think, have no problem stepping in and just saying, like, giving an explanation.
Yeah.
Or if parents are like gracious about it and ask questions, then like I think we're an open book for sure. But it's those like instances that parents, because I think a lot of times in society they tend to shun their kids from asking questions that are uncomfortable. And a lot, like sometimes parents will get mad at their kids for asking those questions, and that's where it gets awkward and kind of like,
want that.
We don't want that. Like, we're like, just be normal and just like ask a question. If we choose to answer it, great. If we choose not to, go Google it.
That's
Parents
good to know. That's
parents
good to know.
Just shush your kid. Like Jackson, again, we're at LPA. Jackson's staring, because he's like, is this guy like dad's age, or is he like?
We were at a restaurant and
our
our waiter had dwarfism, and Jackson's just like follow, and we're like, dude, like stop, stop. Like you wouldn't want to be stared at like that.
Yeah.
Don't do it to somebody else.
But then we educate him. That
We
person has
educate him,
dwarfism like dad. So a lot of parents, I feel like in those situations when we're out in public, shush their kids, but they don't then follow up. So I get it. In the moment, it is tough. You're like,
Totally.
that's super embarrassing. Just shush. Like stop. Let's go to a different aisle. But then rarely do parents, I feel, follow then up. Like, yes, that person
and
has
that's where,
dwarfism,
like,
or that person looks a little different. But hey, it's not polite to stare. If you have questions, you can ask mom and dad later, or something like that. I feel a lot of parents just don't do that, and then they stop. Then they go keep shopping. You know what I'm saying?
And that's
They
where
don't educate
parenting, like the
child.
difference in parenting really comes into play, where, I think a lot of things that we do, we think are common sense, but then they're not to other parents. There's some parents that wouldn't think to go and educate their kid after, or
because they are just worried about like how that made them feel. But the kid still has a question.
Yeah.
Like he still wants to know why that guy's head's so big,
Yeah.
or why he's so short. Because I've never seen something before in my entire life.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've been living on this earth for 7 years.
I've seen a lot
Like,
in
that's-
7 years.
So do you
That's
like
madness.
do you like those kid interactions, or does it get uncomfortable?
It kind of back to what I kind of said, like childhood trauma or like teenager insecurities. I hated it, and so then like I've had to develop but it never went away, even though I'm an adult. So my teenage, like I was saying, like my teenage insecurities of going into a grocery store, and if there's kids in the aisle, avoiding that aisle because I don't want that interaction, you know what I'm saying? And I never grew out of it. So I could go to the grocery store right now or the toy section in Target and kind of relive those experiences. So I've had to like change that mindset, you know, which is always kind of hard.
Thank you to Nutrafol for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. I can say with confidence that I take my Nutrafol postpartum every single day. And Matt, what are you thinking about my hair?
I think your hair looks really good. I think you have great hair.
Hair thinning is different for literally every single person. That's why they have a pill for men. They have a pill for women. They have a pill for women specifically postpartum. And that's what I'm using now, which I'm almost a year out. So I probably am going to switch to the regular women's multivitamin. But I am so diligent to take care of it. And my baby hairs are growing in like crazy. In fact, they're kind of unruly. Like they just like pop out the side.
Yeah.
Like my hair is coming back in.
It's
and
wild.
I think that's because Nutrafol, they tackle the root cause of hair thinning. That's the goal, is to prevent it rather than trying to just like actively work against whatever's happening. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, with over 1 million people seeing thicker, stronger, fast growing hair with less shedding. In clinical studies, 72% of men saw more scalp coverage after taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplement for 6 months, and 86% of women saw improved hair growth after taking Nutrafol women's hair growth supplement for 6 months. It takes 3 to 6 months to see results, but it's really easy because you just purchase online. There's no prescription or doctor's visits required. Free shipping and automated deliveries ensure you'll never miss a day. So it's really easy to commit to, I feel like. The proof is in the pudding. Try the pudding.
Yes.
Try Nutrafol.
It's great.
Get results you can run your fingers through. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code UNPLANNED. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code UNPLANNED. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code UNPLANNED.
Now that my kids who have dwarfism has helped me a lot, like I'm not going to avoid taking them to the playground because there's kids there. You know what I'm saying? I know what the kids are going to say to me, but my kids want to go play.
Yeah.
So that's helped me kind of like get over myself. You know, that's who I am, and that's what's going to happen. It's not like malicious or anything, but it's like sometimes it can be super awkward. Again, you walk in, you just want to be at the park on the bench, your kids are playing, and you show up and it's like freaking nuclear bomb just went off in these kids' minds, and they're like who just walked into the park? You know, it's like you just want to play there with your kid. You know what I'm saying? A little bit. Like I'm just here. It's a Wednesday morning. Like, why are you guys here? Shouldn't you be in school? Okay, like.
How do you anticipate that first time an interaction like that happens with one of your children? Like, how do you anticipate? Is that something where you're like, if they don't bring it up to me, then I won't go and have that conversation? Or is it something where it's like you notice an inappropriate, or not necessarily like you're saying, not inappropriate, but just like a curious question that like gets directed towards one of your kids? And do you find that a situation where you would intervene or just talk about it later with your kid?
It's just developing resilience in them. I don't know if that's his battle he's gonna have to do. That's how I look at it, like in a way, like I know the instinct of like a mom or dad would be like to step in, but in my mind, like he's gonna go through that his whole life. And if he, you know, all my kids, Josiah, Lila, Jax is the one that's maybe dealing with that more on his soccer team, whatever else. But he's gonna I can help him and I give him support or whatever. But like that, and I feel direct interaction, he's gonna have to deal with that.
I feel like that's where it's come into play more, though, is like when we go to somewhere like a play structure or something that kids don't know him. I feel like that's where I don't really see it. But it's like, can I tell the story of one of his best friends? I won't say his name. Okay, you tell it because you're way better at it. But don't say their name.
Okay, so Jackson.
His mom's gonna know, so I apologize ahead of time to her. But Jackson, I'll call her after this.
We just moved to Battleground. We took him out of his old school, put him in his new school mid-season or mid-year or whatever. Like 2 weeks in. Okay, Jackson's a very social kid though.
Yeah.
Anyway, he comes.
He's very confident, very social.
I love that.
He gets very good behavior marks usually. Yeah. Anyway, he came home with like a minus and a note and the whole 9 yards. Okay, I'm sitting on my chair.
Second week of school, and I'm ready. I used to be a teacher, so I'm like, let's go. Like, what did he do?
Yeah. Anyway, Tori's like, you know, Zach, Jackson has something to say, you know, you got a minus. So I put my computer down thinking this is like,
He's got a minus.
yeah, I'm thinking this is, thinking this is going to be a huge story. Anyway, these kids were playing football, and they told Jackson he was too short. Okay, you're too short to play football. Okay, well, a teacher saw it and like bring all the kids together. That's not right, you know. Anyway, she brings the other kid together, basically evens the playing field, and Jackson goes, "I'm gonna kick your butt," and punches the kid in the stomach. Okay.
That's why he got written up.
Okay, he got written up for that. But I'm like, no, heck yeah, okay? Like, these kids are taking away the ball from him, telling him he can't play, and he's going, he didn't instigate anything. He didn't, you know what I'm saying?
He stood up for himself.
Yeah, he's like, dude, let's go, okay? And he's telling me the story. I'm looking up at Tori going, Tori, I don't see anything wrong here. Like, my man, okay? Like, that's my dog, okay? Like, and now he's best friends with these kids, okay?
Like,
but like,
now they play together all the time.
okay, violence is not good, all that stuff, okay?
Blah, blah, blah,
but I'm
blah.
like, no, these kids are discluding him like that, and he like just says, dude.
Now that we know the family and the kid and everything that like. That's like, I think has changed our perspective, like our outlook on how kids interact, because it was him just simply stating a fact. He was not being malicious. He was not being a bully. He was just like, you're too short. Like, you can't play with us. We're older than you. You're
They'd
too
never
short.
seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. They'd never seen it. But then once they like let him play and Jackson's like kind of good at football, then they're like, oh, wait, okay, this is cool. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's allowing him, like, he's going to have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on our podcast, not to plug our podcast again, but
Hey,
like,
go listen to their pod right now. If you're not subscribing to, it's not New Heights.
Raising
it's
Heights.
Raising Heights.
Yeah.
Sorry.
New Heights is good too, but
I apologize.
New Heights is a good one too, though. We say this, like, I truly believe sometimes parenting with someone with disabilities, parenting's hard regardless, and we don't do it. You know, there's times
we're perfect. We don't make any
we
mistakes.
need improvement. But I truly believe raising someone with a disability, you know, the parenting might have to be a notched up one. Like, you don't get the same luxuries as other parents.
Yeah.
Like, Tori doesn't get the same luxury to be able to be as relatable with other moms. You know, you probably, how many times have you had a conversation like, your kids are getting so big, our kids aren't getting big. You know, our kids
just in a
aren't
different
in
way.
the same growth spurts as every other mom's kids. You know what I'm saying? So like those conversations, but then also parenting, they're gonna have different challenges than every other kid too. They're not gonna be able to get away with as much, or like I would say, like, confidence wise, we want to develop confident kids. You know, if you're 6'4" but really immature but super good looking, you can probably get a girlfriend still. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll kind of ignore that. If you're 4'4", immature, you know what I'm saying, low confidence and everything. For example, you know, you don't have the luxury of, like, maybe I'm using dating as an example, but like good looks and the rest can. So developing confidence in our kids, you know, and maybe those situations also then call for certain, like, we want to step in as parents, but I believe we don't have that luxury all the time, because our kids, they're going to have those challenges for a long time. They don't grow out of it. You know, they don't, you know, that acne is going to still be with them. Not to equate dwarfism with acne, but like, okay.
It's empowering them to like develop those skills on their own.
Yeah,
and I think
maybe a
that's
little earlier than another child. That's my belief, and that's how I grew up, and that's just what, for my kids, I want them to, you know, so even though it might hurt me as a dad, I want to step in. Yeah. There's certain situations where I'm like, and then when he comes to me, though, when he comes to me, you know, give him a big hug, and dad loves you, and yes, this and that, but I might say, like, hey, he's got to, you know, he's got to be a dog and just defend himself, you know?
Fight back.
I love how you brought up the point, though, too, with like kids, like they're so new here. Like they're not being malicious, like you said. Like they're just learning things about the world and other people constantly, and they're what's the word I'm looking for? Like the spectrum of what they've been able to pull from, it's constantly growing, and so that is cool that, like, in a way, you're open to like helping expand that like knowledge for them.
Yeah.
You mentioned dating, and it made me think about, we have a friend who's dating somebody from India, and I didn't know this was still a thing, but apparently, like, there's still a lot of people in India that they're not like a big fan of their Indian child dating like a white person or
Oh,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And so I didn't know if that was a thing at all with you guys. If anybody was like, oh, Zach, like, why are you should date somebody who has dwarfism.
Yeah, to build
like,
on
is
that first, did you in like growing up think you would marry someone with dwarfism, or
I did, right?
Yeah.
On the show, I said like
And-
season
yeah.
2, I said I'm gonna marry someone with dwarfism and I'm gonna have a dwarf army.
Really?
I got the dwarf army.
got the
Did
dwarf
not
army.
marry-
Dwarf army with the leg.
I did not marry that dwarf. Okay, so I was 1 for 2 on that, but no complaints. Okay, so-
Was that? I feel like the way you just said that, I feel like you must have like shouted that statement. Was that some sort of like statement you said with pride? Like,
Oh no! I was
Oh, yeah.
14, and they probably said like,
Somebody made him
yeah.
say
The
it.
producer probably like kept asking me. I probably said it like this. I don't know. I'll marry a dwarf and have dwarf kids. Okay, but like
You're like,
now,
I hadn't thought about
that's
it.
what the development. Now I'm like, I'm a little bit more proud about it. Like that's, it's want to be proud of. Yeah, marry anyone you want, but like average height dwarf. We get that all the time. Of like there's some people with dwarfism that like you marry. Sometimes it comes within the dwarf community. You marry someone else with dwarfism.
Well, and I feel like that was the only place ever that like I ever really felt. So when I first started dating him, he was kind of popular in the LPA scene.
But not by my own doing.
Like
though.
all the ladies kind of like
oh,
like he was like good looking and like had a TV show and all this stuff, and so like the ladies were kind of into that. And so I feel like when I came
I
around,
could not be bothered though.
You could not be bothered. But I feel like when I came around, it was a little bit like those like girls at LPA that had dwarfism. They were like, "Who's this chick? Like, why are you
Oh.
this girl? Like, what are you doing?"
All these years, and then he just
all these like all these ladies are like vying for attention and like, oh, who's Zach gonna pick? And then shows up with some tall girl. I don't feel like we got too much pushback though.
Yeah.
We just talked on an episode. Like my dad, I can remember, like when I first told him that we were gonna go on a date, my dad was a little like, no, you're not. You're just kidding. And I'm like, no, like I'm really gonna go. Like, My dad's very like black and white though, and he had this like picture of like where I was gonna end up and what I was gonna do, and like didn't really see dwarfism being a part of that life. But then once he met Zach, now they're like,
Are there
buds.
many people that that have the same type of relation, like mixed height?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're unique in the fact that like all 3 of our kids have dwarfism. A lot because
Yeah.
it's supposedly 50-50 for us to have kids.
I
with
heard you
dwarfism.
explaining this
Yeah.
on your podcast.
And so that's kind of, I think, unique for us because a lot of our friends that have one person of average height and one person who has dwarfism, they have at least one kid who doesn't have dwarfism. But we lucked out, got all 3.
Are you planning on more babies?
No.
You're
Oh,
like,
you're
we got
all done.
3.
We
Oh,
are
yeah.
done. Yes.
We have, it's so.
We're
done.
feeling a little outnumbered at the moment.
Our kids
We're
are great,
good.
but it's not just our kids. Lila had a surgery. Josiah has a surgery coming up. Jackson's already had a leg surgery. There's certain medical things with kids with
But
dwarfism.
then also having 3 C-sections,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm done. Like
yeah.
my body, I don't think.
yeah,
can
we
take
got our
anymore.
we're
content. with
Do
what I
you
have.
know based on ultrasound if the baby is going to have dwarfism?
Yeah,
Okay.
like 3rd trimester, like late.
Oh, you don't know
Which
till the 3rd
also was
trimester.
kind of fun because all my girlfriends, like when they had babies, their last scan would be at 20 weeks, where we got to like go
them
until
thrive.
30, 40 weeks to like track the baby. But we got all.
we
those
knew
extra times.
we knew before the doctors told
We
us
did.
though.
Really?
Yeah, I know what this
Our
looks
doctor
like.
was like
Yeah.
especially with Jackson, she was a little nervous, I think, to
Yeah.
tell us because you never know like how a parent is going to react to their
Yeah.
child having some diagnosis.
I'm like, I saw the nose.
We
I
saw
saw
the, like,
forehead. Like,
and like she comes in with this piece of paper and there's like red all over it, and she like sits down and kind of takes a deep breath. And I think we said it before
Yeah.
her. We're like, okay, so he has dwarfism.
yeah.
You're
And
like,
you could just tell she was like, yeah,
Yeah.
he does.
okay, yeah.
And then
Okay,
by,
we're good.
By Josiah, they were telling us like the second week. Like,
was that
Oh,
was
yeah.
that a question? Like obviously everyone, the question always like, do you want a boy or a girl? Like it's like,
yeah.
oh, which one do you want? Like
Oh,
was
yeah.
that a question for you guys? It's like, do you want a child that has dwarfism or not with dwarfism? Were people asking you guys that question?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think it would be rather bizarre for us to go, oh yeah, we really hope our kid has dwarfism and is different from the rest. Like I feel like that was always such a weird question because who would say that? Like who
100%. That's where it gets kind of tough. Like
Yeah.
the question, like, we
Maybe it was
love
your
our,
dwarf
we-
army
yeah.
comment that they were like, maybe he does.
asking him. Yeah.
No, we love our kids. We love our kids, but it's not like I would not like tell, like, I would not choose that for my kids.
Yeah,
There is a lot of
wish
suffering.
dwarfism
There's
on
a lot of
someone.
mental, toughness that needs to happen. There's a lot of medical complications that come from it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but it's tough to say that. And when I say this, people will say like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you. But it's like, no, reality is like, yeah, I would not wish dwarfism on my kids necessarily. I wouldn't, like, no one would pick dwarfism over average height. You know what I'm saying? Like, people might say they will. No, because they know it's not actually possible. It's not possible for me to actually redo my, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, a genie is not right here.
You're like, it's not an
So
option.
they'll say for their own security, but it's like, no, like, there is a lot of things that can happen, you know.
And I think that's where, like, something that we've talked a lot about lately, is the question of, like, why would you bring kids into
So
the
why would you
world
have kids
if
anyway,
they were
if
going to
the-
be different
if-
and have
Oh,
disability?
okay.
And,
when you know that you could have someone with dwarfism.
And I think that, like, as much as we would never wish that upon someone, that does not mean that your child cannot live a fulfilled life just because
Right.
they
And
have
be super
dwarfism.
inspiring and, like, be happy and
Yeah.
all these things. So it is like this conflict. It's kind of back
But
to
it's
another,
like it's like the same as, like, you asked a parent, like, oh, do you want your kid to be born with 4 fingers or 5 fingers? Like, their life is still probably going to be pretty fulfilled if they have 4 fingers on one
Yes.
hand.
But no one's
Yeah.
gonna
But,
say
But, like,
four
no one's
fingers.
gonna, like, say, oh, well, I really hope my kid only has 4 fingers. You
Right.
know, like, just,
Yeah.
That's a
it's
really good way of
silly
putting it.
question.
And
But
you
it-
mentioned surgeries. Are there certain surgeries that people with dwarfism have to get more predominantly, I guess, than someone who doesn't?
Oh yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Like, Zachary has a shunt. He has hydrocephalus.
So average heights have shunts, but like if
That's
you
true.
go to here's my example. If you go to an LPA conference and go to like the pool or whatever, so tubes in your ears, like lots of people have tubes. 50% of 100 people in a pool at an LPA conference probably have earplugs in their ears. You know what I'm saying a little bit? Like 50% of 100 people with dwarfism have tubes in their ears, so they need earplugs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Why tubes in your ears? What is that?
the water doesn't drain the way our skeletal makeup is. Water does not drain correctly, and so it sits there. And so the idea is, if water's not draining, your hearing is really bad. If your hearing is bad, you might not develop speech the same, or
Oh.
you have
You also get, like, ear infections and, like, other complications.
that's one thing we're battling right now. Is
Yeah.
I had tubes. I do not want our kids to have tubes, but they go through these episodes where they literally cannot hear because they have water in their ears. But it's like, tubes are permanent. Tubes affect the eardrum. You can still get ear infections with tubes. And there's data now that maybe it didn't affect the speech of people that didn't get tubes. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's our data, though. You can't put that on the internet.
Oh, well, I'm just saying.
That's our own, like...
I'm observing that, like, yes, people that, didn't get the tube, it didn't really affect anyone the same way they thought. You know what I'm saying? And so we're kind of battling that a little bit, like, in our heads.
But there's other complications with, like our son has pretty bowed legs. There can be, like,
Lila-
issues with spine. There can be
Lila will probably need, so out of 3 kids, 2 of them already probably need leg surgery.
Yeah.
And adenoids and tonsils are a big one. Are their breathing? We're mouth breathers. I always say, like, if you go into our room, like, we're in a hotel room and our 3 kids are sleeping, if your kids sounded like that,
You'd probably call someone.
You would call 911. They're suffocating. You would call 911 on the spot. Like,
They just breathe loudly,
snore,
yeah,
and-
there's
There's
snores
a lot
and
of
they're
drool. There's a lot.
and they're like, stop. They've all had sleep studies already. Like,
Aw.
like have your, not have your kids had sleep studies, but you know
But
what I'm
it's
saying?
that same, like,
how many of your
on
friends'
average,
kids
not
have had
usually.
sleep
Right.
studies? No
Yeah.
one. Like,
Yeah.
all 3 of ours have already had sleep studies to see if there was something wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
But
and there
we're
was.
also very blessed within the community, because, like, there are some, and I think that when we first got together, and, like, I went to, they have, like, the World Dwarf Games every year, and we went to in Michigan, and I saw some things there that were really scary with kids, like medical issues that it terrified me, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know if I can follow this path of motherhood, because that's all I really wanted, was to be a mom and to have a family, and that was really scary. But then
Tori married me, or fell in love with me, but then that concept, she did not see me as someone with dwarfism. I love Zach, but then once you do get married, the concept
Like,
of,
what's
like,
that
wait a
gonna
minute,
look like?
these kids, I have kids with this guy. right? Like
Yeah.
that thought came a little later.
Yeah.
And that was scary.
And that was hard to like grapple and like, really decide, if that's what I wanted for my life. And I think with him, because he has a shunt, and that's like the scariest thing to me, because it's his brain and he has something in his body and that like he's solely dependent on, otherwise he will die. And that was like, hold on, like, can that be hereditary? Like, can my kids get that? Like, I don't know if I can deal with that. And
You did not say that at our first date.
I didn't get
Oh my
that.
gosh. Yeah, first date, you're cracking out the medical questions.
No, I didn't. And
You
then
did
she's like,
not
yeah, I
bring
got
that
married.
up.
And then I was like, oh, by the way, I have this shunt that like my body relies on. And just a year and a half ago, I had a malfunction.
To have surgery.
And that whole
it's not
big
fun.
thing. It's like, so
Brain surgery?
Yeah.
I forgot to tell her about the house, and I forgot to tell her about the shunt.
And the brain
My
issue.
mistake.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I'm so clueless. What exactly is a shunt? Is it different than the
It's
tubes in the ears?
Yes, it's
Okay.
different. Yeah, there's some reason there's fluid on your brain. The body develops fluid. It's a simple
Like
term.
everyone has fluid on their
But
brain.
yours gets it down into the stomach and deposits. Mine, it clogs up and
It pools.
it hypothetically will drown the brain without a passage that gets it out.
Oh my goodness.
So
So it applies a ton of pressure. So when he
Yeah.
had to have surgery a year and a half ago, the shunt had malfunction. So the drainage had malfunction, and fluid was just building up in his
How
head.
did you know?
It's pretty intense.
I had migraines for a long time, but then eventually
It got to a point where he was
I was
like
having a
in lot
migraine
of
every
pain.
week, and then you go to the hospital, you getting sick, and when they finally got me in, my heart rate went down to like, I don't know, I'm pumped with morphine. I'm like, I'm still in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And then they finally saw it. It was difficult to see because it was all scarred up or whatever. But then they did the transfer, and I was like, all right, let's go.
Scary. A year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So you had like a 6-month-old.
Yeah, I did.
Oh my God.
Thank you for
I'm
pointing
like
that
doing
out.
the math. I'm like thinking like
I feel like every stage we've had a baby, like literally every time we've had a birth, something would happen with him.
I had to
and
leave the
his
hospital
illness.
when we had Josiah because I had this massive migraine.
And now that we know, it was
You're
his.
like-
And I had
it
these
was-
migraines for a long time, and we
Yeah.
just thought it was maybe stress induced, or
Oh, yeah.
we literally ended up chalking it up just to like stress or whatever.
Like
Wow.
all the doctors, like, oh, you just had a newborn. That's probably what it is. And I was always like, no, this is something else. This is not. I'd been.
Finally,
saying
we
it
went
for
to
years.
Salmon Creek twice, and they sent me home. Finally, we went to like OHSU, which is the big hospital in Oregon,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Your shunt's broken. Like, you need."
thank goodness they
Well,
figured
yeah.
it out.
So I haven't had a migraine since then, which kind of makes me
Knock on
mad
wood.
because it's
It's been 10 years.
10 years
10
of like.
years.
oh
Did-
my gosh.
And now I look back at it too, like every time we flew Disneyland, every time we flew, I
That
would,
trip that we saw you guys, one day he was in the room all
and
by like.
I would
couldn't
just
come
tell
out.
Tori, hey, I need to sit for a
Yeah.
minute. There's like I have a headache or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
But now I've flown multiple times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, was it the shunt for 10
the
years?
shunt,
Like
yeah.
to
and
live
they-
without that pain finally.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was annoying.
It was
But anyway,
wild.
I don't know how we
Is-
got
I don't know,
that.
we
but
got
like,
on that topic.
Well, I'm curious talking about having newborns and stuff. I'm just curious. I've been wondering if pregnancy with a baby with dwarfism, is it different, or is pregnancy and delivery about the same?
So, yes and no. Like a lot of women or families don't know that their child has dwarfism until after they've given birth.
Okay.
Because it's not
Okay.
something that their OB or doctor is looking for. And
Gotcha.
so,
there's also different types of dwarfism that aren't as obvious.
like achondroplasia is not as obvious in the womb, like until the third trimester. And so if you're not looking for it, it's definitely, there can be complications with birth because their head is so big. So sometimes they'll end up in an emergency C-section or not be able to have a vaginal birth. But other than that, like, I don't know. I'm like convinced, and this is not scientific. This is just my own. Like I've had 3 kids, and they all had dwarfism, and this is like comparing to my girlfriends who had kids. They have this number of like your amniotic fluid, like how much fluid is normal for a pregnancy, and it's like 12 to something is normal, and I had almost triple the number of normal. And so I'm like kind of convinced that like your body knows something is going on and
Yeah.
something is different, and so it produces extra like cushion.
Well, triple's quite a bit more.
I was huge. Like I got huge during my pregnancy. I'm like, this is so unfair, and that's what
You're
it
like,
was.
I have-
Of like
are the
amniotic
babies
fluid.
smaller?
No.
Oh,
My
okay.
kids were 9-pound babies. Like they were huge.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
This-
Well, and our first kid, like they kind of called it. Jackson, in my 3rd trimester, said he had dwarfism, and he was born, and they had to call someone in to like, does he actually have dwarfism?
Oh, 'cause
because
he's
our
so
kids,
big.
like their features are a little less prominent than some babies. So no,
As a
they're
baby,
like the
it's
normal.
the head. It's the head. Everything
Yeah.
else looks pretty normal. You know, so
Wow.
And
it's-
they have this thing called, I don't know what they call it, starfish hands. So like when he puts his hand
like
together,
raise your hand up. Yeah.
like
See,
your fingers
are-
touch.
like this is not just me. This is like anyone
That's
with
like
dwarf.
that's
if
like
you
a
ever see someone with
distinct-
achondroplasia, I should say,
Yeah, that's true.
do that and they'll have
That's like
that
a
split.
feature. So that's how they found it on our son, was like his
Okay.
fingers did not touch.
You're like-
Wait, okay, hold up.
Wait,
You said achondroplasia.
Sorry,
Is
yeah,
is
well,
that the like the medical official?
I'm an
type.
achondroplasia. I'm an achondroplasia. I have achondroplasia dwarfism. People with dwarfism.
There's thousands of different
Peter
kinds of
Dinklage is an achondroplasia dwarf. Marty Kleba from the Pirates of the Caribbean, different type of dwarfism. I've forgot his type of dwarfism, but so there's like
And
my
like his dad
dystrophic
has-
dwarfism. But achondroplasia, there's hypochondroplasia, which is a type
so
of
many.
achondroplasia, but there's a little bit taller in the torso. Achondroplasia is basically if you and I sat side by side or sat together, our heads, we're standing up. You're 2 feet taller than me, but sitting down, it would seem like we're the same. You know what I'm saying? So our
Got it.
torso is similar. It's just our legs and our arms are affected. And there's other types of dwarfism where like the torso is affected. Things like that.
Interesting.
It was interesting you brought up earlier, like the mythical creature thing with Snow White and how you're bummed that you didn't see the dwarf community represented as much. Something that stuck out to me as I've because Abby watched Little People Big World growing up. I never did. So she, luckily, because of your show, was a lot more educated about the community and knew a lot more.
Yeah.
Education.
Because I think, I want to say 8 years ago, I don't know, I feel like you use the old term that people used to use to describe people with dwarfism, and Abby was the one who was like, no,
does
that's
it start with an M?
it started with an M, and I had no idea. I was literally just using it as a descriptive word.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
no idea that wasn't
It's
was a thing.
derogatory.
Yeah.
Words are
100%.
tough though. Words are tough. Even for me, I've never been a super PC guy. I know what you're saying. I know if you're trying to be mean or not. The reason I don't like the M word is a lot of time I hear sports people use it or football players, they use it in a derogatory way. So it's when
used
someone will
to
say, "Why are
demean
you so
someone."
offended?" I'm not offended, but you know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? When you hear it, sometimes people use it to criticize someone if you're on the basketball court. So it's that's why you have given it meaning. You have given it the negative meaning
Yeah.
almost.
Right.
But even the word dwarf, I think is going to be outdated in 10 years.
Really?
Someone just 2 days ago at the lake
You said something, yeah.
This lady's like, hey, so are you a dwarf? Is that, and when she said dwarf, I wanted to say I'm a little person. You know what I'm saying? So even words have different meanings through different years. Little People of America started out, or a version of LPA started out by M People of America. You know what I'm saying? Back in 1930.
Oh, really?
No
So
way.
it's words change over time.
Yeah.
People ruin it.
Yeah,
Honestly,
but that's
yeah.
my thing is why don't I like that word? Because typically people, but yeah, if some guy was like, hey, Zach has the mail. Who's Zach? Oh, it's the the M that lives across the street. Oh yeah, okay, you're describing me, whatever.
Yeah.
But
You just
again,
haven't been educated.
I've heard the word enough times where I'm like, you're trying to, it's on the soccer field or whatever. You're trying to hurt me. If that's the word you think about when you want to hurt me, you know what I'm saying? That's why.
Then I don't like it.
That's why it's not a great word, you know? So, I don't know. It's a backward. Some people are
makes
super,
sense.
a little bit more about it. But Tori and me have been educated even ourselves. I keep trying to say people with dwarfism because it's not
People
Zach
first
the dwarf.
language.
It's Zach the person with dwarfism.
Yeah.
So it is a language thing that again, not a super big PC person, but I do feel how when I say
can
it,
be
I'm
a mindset.
that is a good for someone that doesn't know and then they don't just think of me as oh, the dwarf. Or anyone. It's the person with dwarfism. So.
Yeah, they teach that in education. I'm sure you know that
Yeah.
too. Being teacher, the people first language. It goes for so many different areas. It just kind of dignifies the person
Yeah.
first before you're like, okay.
And it doesn't defy the person first. You
Yes.
know? Like, it gives them a chance to defy themselves instead of,
Yes.
you know.
That's so interesting to you saying that the LPA convention started off with a completely different name that had
Yeah.
the M word. That is interesting to me because it does show how language changes over time. Is the term little person, is that what we're seeing be like the most commonly used
I
term?
think, most people, if you go to LPA and say, hey, how would you want to be referred? I feel most people will say, I'm a little person. You know what I'm saying? Like, or they'll say, like, their idea now is, like, I'm Zach. Like, how would you want to describe your condition? So it's like sometimes people take it a little farther.
But it's still hard. Like, where were we just the other day? Oh, we were at the mall, and he like went into a store, and I was looking for him. I couldn't find him, and it is still just this awkward. Like, what do you say to people? This lady goes like, "Oh, who are you looking for?" And I go, "Oh, my husband." And I wanted to be like the short guy, you know,
Yeah.
but like it's like kind of awkward
Yeah,
when
I
you
have
tell
no problem
someone.
with
I've
that
been
though.
around
I'm
it
like,
for 10 years.
it gets
like,
things done quick. Be like, he's the shortest guy in the store.
shortest
Where
guy
is
in
he?
the store.
Like, so I'm done. Like, okay, we need to get moving.
But it
okay?
is still just like weird.
Yeah. So, I don't know,
That
language
is
has
so-
like that. I'm gonna go back to the Snow White thing real quick. Is there sometimes when people make such a stink about something though, and then you get almost pushed aside. So if we get so offended, you know what I'm saying? Like certain minority groups,
Yeah.
I feel like then they go, we just don't want to deal with that.
We
So
just
we're just
don't
gonna
wanna
sidestep it. You know what I'm saying? Or like, I don't want to even invite you on a podcast or something because I don't want to like have to feel like I have to navigate those waters and you're gonna you know what I'm saying, a little bit. So it's like sometimes that's my philosophy on all that. Like, assume good intent, you know what I'm saying? Don't get too up about it because then most people will just like, hey, we don't want to deal with that, we don't understand it, and it's easier just to get someone else because we don't want to be canceled or we don't want to be it's like, so it's this navigation a little bit and educating, but also like having grace for people, especially if someone grew up somewhere where they've never seen someone like that. Like, okay, they're not gonna know the right language. Like, that's totally normal. I don't know the right language for all the minority groups. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a normal thing. You know, so
That's really good of you to like hold that grace and be open to questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I respect that a lot too, because I think you're right. I think a lot of people, most people, I mean, there are truly horrible people out there in our world, but like I think, you know,
Most people want to do the right thing.
I look at our society as like a bell curve. Like, did you guys ever take statistics where it's like most people on a bell curve are like most people are the same, right? Like the majority of people are all like pretty like chilling here in the average area, but then you got those outliers. So you have the people that are like really freaking good, like the Mother Teresas of the world who are so nice, but then you got like the psychopaths that like do unspeakable things. So I don't know, but I think you're right. Most people don't have like, they're not out to you know.
Yeah, we allow one psychopath to like dictate. Like, I could be here I've had a great experience in Tennessee, but like one person come up to me, be rude, and then people will say Tennesseans are so mean. It's like, no, you had one interaction. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we do that. We allow those outliers to dictate how we talk and act when really, you know, everyone's pretty the same, more on the same wavelength than what we feel like, what I feel like is told to us by media or whoever else.
Do you feel more relaxed now that you don't have camera crews around you? Do you feel like, I have so much free time, like let's go get into rock climbing? Like what are you doing with your time now?
No, it's raising kids. We are relaxed, right? But it's also figuring out what's next. You know, we still got 3 kids, and what's the next, you know, job, what's the next, you know, there's stress there as a parent, you know, and you want to give your kids a certain lifestyle, but then there's also, this is the first time I feel like I've been on media not controlled by either me or the network. You know what I'm saying, a little bit? Like, this is, so like there's new experiences like this. But yeah, it feels good. It feels good, and we're
it's definitely like scary. It's scary stepping away from a job like that and leaving behind all of the perks that came with that. That for sure is like very scary. And like, I taught before we did any of this, or before I did any of this, sorry. But I like, what do you do now? Like, go back to teaching? You know, it's just like that kind of, okay, what's next? Like, what's going to
different than like
bring
being
us joy?
a software developer, for example, at Microsoft, and you leave Microsoft, you go get a job at Intel, or you go get a job at Salesforce or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of end it, like, you know, you don't, it's difficult to have a public job because
Right.
you're such a distraction. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But it's also you're trying to find something. You have to keep the train going a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's also like I can't go start at a starting pay job. My life's developed. You know what I'm saying? So, but
Yeah.
I don't have any experience in any other industry.
Yeah.
I'm a TV child star. You know, so it's
Yeah.
like it's navigating all that.
Yeah.
So it's nerve wracking for sure. But it's, you know, it's life. It's not the end of the world, and I feel like.
And I think it's also pushed us to just like explore what we want to do. Like, where do we want to go next? And it's given us, like you said, the freedom to kind of like step back and ask those questions. And honestly, just to have a little bit of privacy for a minute has been very nice. Like,
Yeah.
not having people at our house every week, and not having to like come up with storylines of like what we're gonna do that week. You know,
Yeah.
it's that, I think that portion's been really nice.
that's
Was-
the pressure. Or sorry.
Oh, what'd you say?
Or that's the pressure of not having storylines. Is when you're on reality TV, they're always asking you, so what are you guys doing this week?
Yeah.
What do you? And you almost feel like lame,
Like going to
boring,
Aldi?
You know,
So
but really you're
lame.
normal.
So
But it's
lame.
like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not skydiving every other week. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not normal.
Yeah.
Again, like,
Well,
you know?
and like we're in a season right now too that like our kids are kind of going through it with like medical stuff, and it's kind of nice not to have the cameras
Yeah,
there. Like, it's
I didn't
nice
even
to
think
do
of
it
that.
privately and like to do it on our terms and on our
Jackson
you know.
had his second leg surgery and we didn't share it on
like
camera.
he asked us not to share it, and I think that was like
Aw.
a huge like point where Zach and I looked at us like, okay, what does this mean if our 7-year-old is asking us not
Wow.
to have them
But
here?
we kind of talked about it earlier, though, that also we were in a blessed position. That's a huge storyline. That's an easy, like, we said no to a huge storyline for the show,
Yeah.
but we were in position,
Yeah.
and that's kind of, you know, leaving the show, but we were also able to say, no, we're not doing
Like,
that.
these
A
are
lot
our
of
kids,
people,
they matter more.
yeah, what do you
like-
need? What do you need? Or like, I'll do anything to do whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But we had to, you know, no, like he's not into it. That's not happening. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're gonna film us talking at our dinner table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah, because what does that look like? I think obviously if you're doing, you know, you guys now are doing a lot more on YouTube. So with YouTube, you could literally record your video on a phone, but saying no to Little People Big World, doing an episode on Jackson's surgery, what did that mean? Because I'm guessing you probably had multiple camera people that would go in on a doctor's appointment and film and do all
Totally.
that. So what did the ins and outs look like that?
Yeah. You were followed a lot. And sometimes, like, my big thing that you were asked questions, like they would interview about what just happened. Sometimes when you talk about something, it brings a new meaning, and then it almost puts an emphasis on something that, like, I'd be like, that was cool. Well, you can't just say that on TV. Why was it cool? Like, talk about it. And they would ask you over and over again, because after the commercial break, they need you to, like, say it again. If you watch a show, you can see how it's structured. After the commercial break, they basically say, like, yeah, I'm here at Jackson's surgery, for example. And then that becomes annoying, and because it's like, all right, now it sounds
They're
like it's
looking for something deeper.
and it's a bigger deal than what it was. You know what I'm
Ah.
saying? So they're like, I feel weird saying this because it feel like because I'm saying it over and over again, it's bringing some weird emphasis to it.
Well, and then they would bring in storylines though too to those scenarios that were kind of frustrating. Like we would have like first birthdays or surgeries that they like Jay's first leg surgery. They wanted to like talk about his mom coming to like watch the kids, and that was like
Yeah.
a huge part of the storyline, which is amazing. Like we're so grateful that she was there and could help us, but at the same time, we're like, if our son's leg surgery is not like dramatic enough and like can't,
Not because back
then
my
like why are
mom
we
and-
telling the story? Like
my
why
mom
are
and dad
we?
are getting a divorce,
Yeah.
and I have my mom watching the kids, and you go.
It's like,
They're-
why is your dad not
Yeah.
going?
Why
Like
is
they
she
would
just-
just start talking about other things
There's
that
like
you're
levels to this, you know. It's like I see
Yeah.
where this is going.
Yeah. And so that was hard. And he's so good at like remembering what he says. Like he'll say something and 2 years from now he'll say the same thing. He's very good at like where I like sometimes have word vomit and we'll
Yeah.
just say something and then 2 weeks later I say something totally different, and that could be like not a good thing when you're in reality television.
Yeah, people spot that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like you leaving the show, was it well received with the network, with your family, with everyone? Or was it like a harder conversation? Because you said you were nervous about.
There's a lot of family dynamics that weren't great. So like that, no, it wasn't like joyous, but for me it was, you know, someone needs to be the adult in the room. This isn't working anymore, and there's a lot of toxicness going on. And like I know the money's great, I know this and that, but eventually someone needs to say this needs to stop. and we need to separate from this. And then we also kind of like said it, you know, on show. Networks don't like that. They like making those announcements. They like controlling that narrative. They didn't say anything to us because that's not how they work. But I just know from experience, we basically told the people we're done, you know, and I know that was probably not they were super stoked about that.
I think that we like also wanted to control the narrative. We didn't want something written that was like, oh, Little People Big World's canceled, and you know, like I think we wanted to like write the narrative.
The people then say like, oh, they canceled or they don't want, like, it's like, no, we're making a kind of a big boy decision here, and
like this is our
we're
decision
stepping away from something that's at the top, and like this is not. You get what I'm saying? I kind of wanted that respect a little bit. Like we wanted that respect a little bit of like, you know, this is our call here, and it's a big one. So like we don't want it to be manipulated any other way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's probably like the first thing you got to say on your own without like their hand in it.
I do what I'm told. I'm very good at it.
I know how you feel. I don't like messing up stuff.
Oh no.
Like, I want to make everybody happy.
Oh yes, dude. I'm a rule follower, all the things. And so, you know,
I am not.
You're a rule breaker.
I'm a rule breaker.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tori does not like to be told what to do. So reality television was not a great industry for her. Working with the producer and all that stuff,
So
like
true.
I'll do it when I
Like,
want
who
to do
are
it.
they?
I wasn't cut out for it.
You get lines, you know, sometimes like, because sometimes when you film, you guys maybe know this, you film something and then once you see it on camera, be like, that makes no sense. We have to come in and add words to it or something, or add a sound bite. You know what I'm saying? In the time, it makes sense. So they would have us do that, you know, to like add
so
sound
bad
bite.
at it.
I was great at it.
Were you great at it?
I was great at it. I said exactly what they wanted me to say every time. And you would always, you had to change one word just to like, you know, like.
Well, they would like give you a line to say, and I'm like, I would never say that. I would never, you know, they would give you some like fancy dancy worded whatever, and I'm like, this is not how to say this. Yeah,
that's funny. I didn't even realize, but it makes sense. Like anything without without the full picture is like, wait, what's going on?
Right.
Is the show canceled?
Like they haven't come out and said it, but like we're not continuing.
Yeah,
so it is.
They haven't like said like if your parents or anything.
Yeah, they haven't said if my parents are continuing it in some form or if they would continue it. But Tori, me, in that current format, I think reality television, we're done. I don't know. You never know. You can never say no.
Like we're like people have asked us like, would you ever have your own show? And we're so like, who would want to watch that? We were like the comedic relief of the show.
We're very aware we're not willing to do what needs to be done to be the sole characters on you know what I'm saying? The drama, we're not willing to do that. So it is like I don't want to say no to anything.
Yeah.
But the current format of I wasn't totally stoked for how the last like 5 years of Little People World within the family was kind of managed and run. So not even like a network issue, but also kind of a network issue. And that format. But they have not announced it. So
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was a great run. You know, it got us to where we are now. But now we're kind of excited for the future and see where these opportunities take us.
Do your own thing.
Yeah, and see what we want to do. And like I'm a big soccer guy. I want to maybe start a soccer podcast one day, but
I know he's already planning to ditch me. He's like,
Our
how do I get rid of this chick?
Dude, okay, why is it like when I think, because I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. We loved Game of Thrones and watched it. And
terrible ending though, right?
Ending.
The ending.
We actually kind of liked it, but we think it's because we didn't watch it in real time. We binge watched the whole 8 seasons together, so we didn't have the build up.
Yeah.
So we weren't like let down.
Okay.
It was okay. Like, was the ending amazing?
Yeah.
No. But yeah, since we binged it in a month, I feel like I don't know how long you watch it for, but for someone who probably watched it for 8 years, probably was pissed that it
I think I came in like probably 4 years in, and then we binged
and then we watched
whatever
it
was
every
up
year.
to that point, and then it was like the last couple seasons.
See, that would be hard because even that's how I feel about House of Dragon. Like it's hard for
is that
each.
related to Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
It
I
is. It's the prequel. It's the prequel to Game of Thrones.
You gotta watch it.
I think it was on your Instagram that I was like, we gotta check this out.
Okay, hold
But
up.
it's easy for me to get let down on those episodes because I'm like, I waited 2 years for the next season.
yeah.
You know, I can see where if we would have watched Game of Thrones that way.
Because you mentioned this on your podcast, it was cool to have representation with Peter being Tyrion Tyrion in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wonder why
I love
they didn't.
Tyrion.
They should have
So
brought him
good.
back or brought back somebody else to have like a similar like character to
Oh, yeah.
Tyrion
So
Yeah.
good.
in House of the Dragon, because there isn't anybody
I don't
who
think
is.
it would have made sense though, because that's what made him so unique in the first one.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
If they had already seen a dwarf before, he wouldn't have been who he was. That was the idea. Is Tyrion was this like no, you know what I'm saying? Like it was
The
a
first
unique.
of his kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the family bloodline.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying a little
Yeah.
I
bit?
get what you're saying.
If that was in the bloodline before, I feel like his story wouldn't have made as much sense.
That makes sense because it is
So-
like the House of the Dragon is like several
Before.
years before.
Back to the PC stuff though, I'll admit, like the term dwarf I was like, wait, is that the correct term? Because
Yeah.
you have like
Being used in
'cause
Snow
it- 'cause
White,
it's like
you didn't know if it was
'cause it's-
outdated.
Yeah.
It's almost like a mythical creature
Yeah.
or whatever in Snow
if you
White.
look up the dictionary,
No, it's changed.
oh,
Though.
it's
It
changed.
used to.
If you looked up the dictionary
Like
15 years ago,
Merriam-Webster
20 years
dictionary.
ago, it would be a magical creature from a fantasy land.
Yeah. What
So,
was it though? It was a magical creature from something.
I thought it was fantasy.
I was just reading.
Oh
I just
my
read
gosh.
all the Aragon books. I read those when I was like in middle school, and I've gotten back into reading again as an adult. And I was like, let's just reread these books. It'll
Yeah.
be fun. And yeah, there's like you have just like a book series like Lord of the Rings. You have the dwarves in the books,
yeah.
and so yeah, for me, I was like, wait a second, is this the right term? But I guess the dictionary definition.
Some
has
of it I
changed.
feel like is like marketing too. Like I don't know. This is my own theory. So when the term dwarf became super popular, it's a marketing like it's an organization for people with dwarfism. That's a oh, I know what dwarfs are. Like I've seen them in Willy Wonka and whatever. What's the Golden Road?
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's a marketing thing there, and I feel like in a way, but now we're more definitely. There's more people with dwarfism on camera, television, so you don't have to say that. You can say a little person. Someone will say, "Oh yeah, I know that." You know, that's my theory.
Yeah.
But back then, if I was creating a organization for people with dwarfism, you say what people would know. What word is the popular word at the time? You know,
Got
so
it.
M word, D word. Now little people. You know,
Yeah.
so.
Gotcha. No, I'll have to check out your soccer podcast whenever you start it.
Okay, yeah.
That could be kind of
Don't
rad.
encourage him now. Okay, come on.
We did a coaching
Oh.
soccer topic on our podcast. It was our lowest rated one. Brutal. Okay, I was so into it. Like it's like
I was stoked. for this
our
episode.
pie chart showing all of our ratings. That one just like, no one wants to hear me. Okay. But that's okay. I'll live.
That's fun.
But I still might
Passion
do it.
project.
It's a passion
That's the
project
thing.
for
Some
sure.
things it's important to do some things even though they
Exactly.
don't
bring you joy.
you know
Yeah.
bring that money or whatever. It's important to
And it was a good episode.
It was-
Whoever
I thought it was a
they probably were
fantastic-
listening to me too much because I was like, oh my gosh, we're talking about soccer again.
Do you coach your son? Does your son play
Yes,
soccer?
yes.
Oh,
That's
you're the
fun.
coach.
Yeah.
That's
I love
really-
that.
He's
That's what
such
I
a good
did
coach. He's good.
for. Yeah, I've done that since I was like 15. Work with kids, and then having my own kid. The COVID took a year, or Lila was born, and then COVID happened. And then once you have your own kids, it definitely, I'm like, man, I can't imagine. I'm gonna coach my kids. I might go back into competitive coaching, but you know, when you have your own kids, I'm like, I want to.
This is where it's at.
Yeah,
That's
this is where it's at. I
awesome.
can't.
And he's so good.
I would have a harder time. I
You
feel
don't want to
like.
hand that off.
Well, I would have a harder time dealing with someone else's kids. No, I would still coach my kid, but then also in addition, like dealing with someone else's kids.
Oh.
Like this is where I want my patience, my capacity,
Yes.
my this is my focus here.
I'm sure that's probably how you feel also about teaching.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
You're like, because I think about teaching, like, so many teachers are with kids all day.
Yeah.
And they come home and they're like, oh, their kids
I don't know
have
how
their-
they do that. Like I feel like that would be really difficult to be a mom who teaches all day with other kids and has to come home and be present with
My
her
mom
kids.
did, yeah.
That would be really and like I think one day I can see myself going back when all of my kids are in school, but yeah, like my friends do it now when they have like babies at home, and I'm like, how do you do that? That's so hard.
Their capacity just grows and grows.
Yeah.
It's-
Your dynamic and just seeing how you talk to one another and interact with each other, it seems like you just have such a healthy relationship, and it seems like you like clearly obviously love each other very much. What do you guys do that you think helps build that bond that you have?
Well, thank you. That was sweet. I think that Zach and I are super reflective people. Like I think we're really like we go to every situation and every hang out or anywhere that we go, we get in the car and we immediately reflect on like, what did we do well? What could we have done better? Like in parenting and relationships. And, I think that that's something that's really helped us in our marriage, like just being reflective and communicative with each other.
Just like emphasis on team too. Like everyone has a role,
which I struggle with sometimes. Like just like things, like little things. He always talks about like it's us, and like a lot of times I find myself saying I or my kids, my family. Like no, it's our family, our kids, our time, and just even that small little adjustment I think is super important and can change outlook on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like a weekly date night you do, or is there some sort of like ritual or something that you guys do together that's like, this really, you don't have anything?
When we moved up to Battleground, we
left our babysitter roster.
I know, we had such a roster.
Oh.
And then we just haven't been able to recreate it.
But we go on date night.
But we do go on dates, not like a weekly thing.
I think we go on date night more average than like a lot of people. Like we still make time for just us. I mean, we're on this trip by ourselves. This is like such a gift just to be here. And obviously we miss our kids, but I think we do a good job of like, I think for us, we don't always have to go somewhere or go on a date to make time for one another. Like even if it's just we put the kids to bed and we watch a show together, just
the intentionality.
Yeah.
It's cool to see how you guys have respected like your family, your kids, and just wanted the best for them clearly. And so it's clear that leaving the show was probably, I mean, like you guys clearly thought about it a lot and really thought through that big decision, but it seems like you really care about your kids and keeping boundaries between reality TV and your family. How do you navigate family boundaries with extended family now that you have your own family?
You experiences, you get burned or whatever, and then you realize like, hey, this is what needs to happen. You get a lot, like I'm a very passive guy and I want to make everyone happy, but yeah, when you do have kids, it does light something under you where it's like, this is not happening, or we're separating from this, or we're doing that.
I think when you intertwine business with family, it gets super complicated. And I think that this, last year almost that we haven't been doing the show, it's really just trying to figure out what does our relationship look like with our family outside of business. Like we're not working with our family anymore, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. I don't think that was always navigated the right way. Also, like beyond reality television though too, just having space sometimes is really nice. Like when I love like in-laws, they're great. They're great, but sometimes being 45 minutes away from family it's okay. Like we don't all have to live next door to each other. We don't all have to hang out. We're like, I feel like for the first time, especially in Zachary's life, like I went away to college, and so I kind of got a taste of what it means to get away from family and like do things on your own. But I feel like for the first time in our marriage, we're completely making decisions on our own without the input of anyone else, whether it be friends, family, anything. Like we're doing our own thing in Battleground, and we're loving it. Like we're having fun and making friends on like
on your own,
and it's just been nice.
Battleground,
awesome.
There's not a lot of people I feel like you can make friends that people maybe don't watch Little Big World up there. So
which is nice too. Yeah,
bunch of farmers and everything. So
what did our
we don't have a
neighbors?
TV.
What did our neighbors say to us? Are like no joke. The day after we moved in, they're like, "Oh, we Googled you." And we're like, "That's not fair. Like you can't Google us. We can't Google you." So
our neighbors, like they have a road building business right next to us, all their equipment, everything, and like there's days when we're out there filming like this or like. When we were doing Little Big World, and like all their blue collar workers are like looking over the tree line,
what are they
going,
doing over there?
Yeah, like we're like the new couple from LA that just moved up there, like doing like social media stuff, and they're making America move over there, okay, building roads.
They are building
and we're
roads.
goofing off on social media.
Oh my gosh.
What in the hell is going on over there?
Get a real job.
It's so true.
I love that. That's refreshing. I love that.
It's grounding. Like Battleground is a very grounding place.
They don't care how many followers you have.
No one.
It's humbling.
Yeah.
I love that.
Anyway.
Well, thank you guys for coming on the show and like just sharing, I don't know, so much.
Yeah, thank you for allowing us to ask questions that like probably or like maybe we didn't say everything like exactly right, or just like letting us like be educated and like you have such a cool story. I admire so many aspects about you guys and you as a couple and how you've navigated the media too. Just like so much grace, so much wisdom.
Yeah, I hope that. Yeah, I just really want to make sure that people hopefully are educated in some way by the episode and like learn something, but also got to know you guys a bit more. And if you guys haven't checked out their podcast, go check out Tori and Zach's podcast, Raising Heights. It's awesome. I've listened to a few episodes, and I think you guys are great. So where else can people find you besides your podcast?
My Instagram.
Yeah, Tori's Instagram. I have an Instagram.
Zach tries Instagram, but
I'll post things on my Instagram, and they think it's Tori.
they all think it's me. Yeah.
They're like, we know this.
Tori's
is
Instagram, our YouTube,
YouTube,
and then the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and wherever else you listen to your podcast.
Look at you. Good job.
Wherever you listen to that, that's
He's like, click the link below.
Yes.
that's like every podcast or wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, wherever you listen to the podcast.
I thought they were telling podcasters to say that, and then I was like, no, we just
say
we
it.
just all do
just
it.
say
Do it.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.